I ended the last segment by saying I wish we had an hour to talk about this. And as we sat here, we decided to do a couple of bonus questions at some time that didn't fit into the show. So we'll put this up online because I think this is information for a lot of people. As lay people, as civilians, we have a different view of the government sometimes. And as much as I know about law enforcement, I would have said to you that the FISA courts were created to give the government a mechanism for surveillance. And you're saying it's just the opposite.
Yes, no question. Again, going back to the original, in the late 60s, the days of rage and the college students going crazy, pipe bombs going off, law enforcement was running crazy because of all the protests. And the protests were, what, Vietnam War, civil rights movement, so forth, all these things going on. Into the early 70s, as those things continued, the president had unilateral ability to contact the Department of Justice, his or her attorney general, his attorney general back then, and say, we need a wiretap, I approve a wiretap on this. It was presidential unilateral ability. So when it started to happen, you know, and the FBI was part and parcel of this, and J. Edgar Hoover, Martin Luther King, and some of the more notable, and then of course the infamous Watergate and what President Nixon did. It is called the Keith case. It's a very close hold case, but the case was the United States versus the United States District Court, and they actually, the U.S. sued the court and went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made a decision that the president should not have that unilateral power to authorize a wiretap on an American citizen. However, they refused to make a decision on foreign intelligence. They thought that was important. But their recommendation was to Congress to come up with a checks and balances, an oversight process.
Yeah, like a mechanism.
Yeah, to review these cases so that it went beyond the Department of Justice. So in '78, Idaho Senator Frank Church spearheaded a committee. They came up with the FISA court. And the FISA court was built to put in checks and balances, a mechanism for checks and balances to eliminate or prevent the abuse of wiretaps that were previously directly, unilaterally decided upon.
Would have been the opposite of what I would have thought, but it was to limit the power of the president or any individual and make sure it went through a process like you would see in any other court for surveillance.
Exactly.
To make sure. And that puts my mind at ease more because I think a lot of people to see that it's actually a check and balance instead of a mechanism for allowance.
And they even went a step further and they made it a two-court process, a FISA court and a FISA appellate court. So not only couldn't it be automatic with one court, if there was any question, they had an appellate court put in place.
This is why he's smarter than I am, and this is why we bring smart people on the show. I appreciate the extra segment.
Sure.
We'll have this up online. Thanks.
Thank you.
This is great.